Hey guys, we're ready to do the April Kimberbell project, and this month it's the little fresh flowers design for Mother's Day. And so we're going to talk about adding the lettering to our design, and then I'm also going to show you how to do the little flowers down here that we glued onto our picture frame. So let's get started. Okay, so what you'll need is just your different colors of thread for your flowers and the appliques and everything. Some Kimberbell tape. In the instructions, she says to use a medium weight cutaway. I'm going ahead and I'm using the heavyweight cutaway. I want the background to be, since we're framing this, I want it to be nice and stiff. So I'm using the heavyweight, and then I went ahead and I'm also using a layer of this Fusion fleece. It's just a real thin batting that's fusible, and so I'm just hooping it up. I've actually bonded it to the cutaway here, and so I'm hooping all of that up. So I'm just wanting to get it nice and stiff. Then on the back, some of the prep work is to iron the SF101 or the fusible backing onto the back of your fabric. I've ironed 2 layers onto the back of the background fabric. And then I went ahead and I've ironed 1 layer onto the back of the stripe and the little bluish fabric. Okay, so what's going to be in your kit is going to be the fabric for the background, and then the 2 applique pieces, and the 8x10 picture frame. So we'll get to that here in a minute. Now we're going to talk about how we're going to hoop it and everything, because I'm doing it different. What they're having you do in the instructions, they're telling you to iron the fusible SF101 onto the back of the background fabric, and then on the right side of the fabric mark your crosshairs, and then cut you a piece of the cutaway, and then hoop all of that in the hoop. Okay, I'm not using the 5x7 hoop. This design, just the design by itself, can be stitched off in the 5x7 hoop, but I'm going to be adding words to it, so I'm going to go ahead and use the bigger hoop. And then I didn't want to hoop my fabric. I didn't want to put crease marks and everything in it, so I'm going back and I'm going to use her crosshairs and spray the stabilizer and then lay the fabric on top of that. So I have marked mine on the wrong side of the fabric with the crosshairs, right in the center. Now, if you are going to stitch this off in the 5x7 hoop, make sure you're cutting your stabilizer, whatever you're going to use for your stabilizer, cut it the 10x12 size. Okay, so our background fabric is 10x12, because you don't want just a little piece of cutaway stabilizer in this 5x7 hoop and then you go to try to put it in your picture frame. So you want your stabilizer as big as your background fabric, however you're going to hoop it. So let's get it hooped first. So we're going to, okay, well, go back. I did want to talk to you also about this. Okay, and we're on page 5, step 4 of the instructions. She's saying to hoop the stabilizer and background fabric, aligning the center marks on the hoop with the center of the fabric. And they're showing the little notches on your hoop. Okay, that is not the exact center of your hoop on all of your different hoops. They kind of vary. So like I'm using the template here. So when you're hooping and you're going to use, and you are going to hoop correctly, you know you want to line up those arrows. So I have the arrows on the outside hoop and the arrows on the inside hoop lined up with each other. And then when you lay your template down in there, you make sure you can read the ABC right there. And in this particular hoop, this is the 9.5x14. Those notches on the hoop are lined up with the center lines on your template. But on the 5x7 hoop and some of the other hoops, they are not. See how the notch is right here, but the actual center of your hoop is over a little bit. So just watch that. And it's not off, I mean, it's off maybe 1/8 of an inch, but it is off a little bit. So we've had people, get confused and they think, well, my design's not exactly in the center of the hoop because they're using those notches when in reality, that is not the exact center of the hoop. The lines on your template are the center of the sewing area, if that makes sense. Okay, so just note that. Now, what I'm going to do, I have my stabilizer and that little fusion fleece hooped up. I'm going to be stitching the crosshairs. I'm using the mouse today. It's plugged in to the machine here, and a lot of your machines, go over here on the side, that have the 2 USB ports, you can plug a mouse into one of them. And it's usually denoted, it's the bottom one that has the little mouse icon down there. But I was playing a while ago and I could actually plug this into both of them. It has to be a wired mouse. So if you just have an old mouse from an old computer, you can plug that in. And I got that because when I start adding my words, my finger was in the way and you wouldn't be able to see the screen as well. So I'm just going to use the mouse as the pointer. But I also, because some people may not realize that, you can also plug in a external CD drive into some of the machines, okay? So not all the machines will do this, but some of them will. So what you can do is plug in the CD drive down there, and if it makes connection, then you pretty much know it's going to work. It starts spinning and everything. And then I can go into, since I've unplugged the mouse, I have to just touch the screen. I can go in, I have that CD drive plugged into the port that is denoted with the little USB or the little mouse there. And when I touch that, it is going to bring up the designs that are on this CD. Do I keep sticking my head in the way? Where'd this? Oh, CD's right here. I have the CD from the little bench pillow that we're going to be doing the class on in June. And so you can go in to same folders, just like off of a USB stick. It's just reading directly from that CD that's in the CD drive. So if you don't like transferring the designs from CDs to USB sticks, and it just, you kind of have to experiment with the CD drive. This is a Memorex. So if you have the crosshairs saved in the memory pocket of your machine, you can just bring those up from there. If you haven't saved the crosshairs in your machine yet, if you go to your USB stick, I went back and looked, in January of this year, we used the crosshairs, so they're in that folder. So I'm going to go get those, and I'm going to stitch those off right in the middle of the hoop. Now I am using just a light color thread because this is going to stay attached to my design, because I'm going to be, when I put it in the picture frame, it's going to be the stabilizer and everything. So I don't want to use a bright color thread that might show up through my background for my crosshairs. So I'm using just a light color, kind of bluish gray. You could use white, but that's going to help me get my fabric centered here in a minute. So now I'm going to go get my design. So you could just go retrieve your design if you're not going to add any other words to it, and you would just get your fabric centered and start stitching it off. But I'm going to add some words, a little saying for Mother's Day, to my design. So I'm going to go to my USB stick, go get the design out of the April folder. And don't worry about those 3 little flowers. I'll tell you about those here in a minute. Set that. Okay. Now, when I bring this design up, this design is exactly centered in the hoop. So if I was going to just stitch this off, it's ready to go. Okay. It would line up with my crosshairs that I've stitched off in the hoop. But I'm going to add some words. So when I add these words up here above this design, the design's not going to be centered in my hoop anymore. So we're going to have to do something. Okay. So I'm going to add. I'm just using the fonts that are built into the machine. That number 7 there, most of the machines have that font, and it's probably my favorite one that I use. As soon as I start bringing in my letters, I can kind of tell that large size is going to be too big. So before I program in anything else, I'm going to go ahead and choose the small size. Medium size. Thank you. Now, I'm just going, you can go back and forth between uppercase, lowercase, your punctuation and all. Make sure you put a space in between each word. Now I'm going to mess up here because I want to show you something. Let's say I forget to put in a space between love and is. Okay. On these machines, you have this little preview screen over here, and then you have this little red cursor. That's where the next line or next letter is going to be inserted. So I can back that cursor up. So I can put it, and it looks like the E is selected, but now the red line is between the 2 words, and then I can just add that space in there. And then I need to make sure, as I'm going to continue programming in, I need to go ahead and bump that red cursor back over so that the next line or the next word will be inserted after that. And right at this point, I want to go down to the next line of text. So I'm going to hit that little enter arrow right there. And then keep programming it in.
Need space. Handy.
Yeah. The only thing I wish they would add is spell check. I wish it would have a spell check on here because I need it. Okay. Now, on this machine also, I can change the justifications. So right now it's in center. So if I kept doing row after row after row, like doing quilt labels and things like that, it's going to keep centering each line one under the other. But I want it kind of even over on the left side, so I can change that. There it goes to the right, and there it it justifies it over to the left. So I just want it like that. Then I'm going to set that, and then I'm going to move it up above the design. Now you just want to make sure that this is going to fit in your 8x10 frame. So it's telling me right here the words are 6.7 inches wide, so we're good. So it's an 8x10 frame, so I should be good. Now, you can play. I'm trying to decide if I wanted to like rotate it a little bit like that. Bailey doesn't like that though. She wants it centered. Or she wants it going straight. Yeah. So you can play with it and just get it positioned where you want it and all. So I want it about like that. Now, it's not centered in my hoop. Okay. So what I'm going to do, this machine, some of the machines will let you select everything, and so I'm going to show you that way first. So I'm going to choose my little square, circle, and triangle tool down here, which is your select all option. I'm going to go there. I'm going to do the pink little boxes there, and then watch the screen as soon as I hit this center dot. So that moves it. So now that whole design is in the center of my hoop. Okay? And then say, okay. If your machine doesn't have that where you can select all, you could just save it into the memory of your machine. It will save it as one whole design and then bring it back up and center it that way. But you just want to make sure if you're using the crosshairs like I am, you need to get that design centered within your hoop. Okay. So now we're ready to just start. Well, now I need to hoop my fabric and start stitching. So I'm going to go ahead and send that to the embroidery machine. So we're going to go over there to the spray box. Okay, so I just want to spray the hoop, okay? And I could spray the fabric, but it would get sticky all over my fingers while I was trying to fold it and everything. So I have my big, I don't know, Robbie gave this to me. I think it was a peanut jar or something, or pretzel jar or something. So I want to spray the whole thing, so I'm just spraying down in that. Move it. Okay, so that gets my stabilizer stuff nice and sticky. And then I'm just going to take and fold my fabric on that crosshair. And then what I do is I can see where this line is, so I try to line it up with this one. Right like that. And then unfold it. And then you can kind of peel it back and see how it looks. Looks pretty good. Okay, and then you can also turn it over, kind of hold it up in. I can kind of see that. Can you see it in the camera? I'm kind of below that line, but I'm consistently below that line, so I think I'm good. Okay. Now we're going to go back to the machine and start stitching it off. Okay, we're actually ready to start sewing. So I was looking at the instructions. I know this design has the two pieces that are applique. So I kind of look through the instructions, and it's doing the placement line and tack down for the little cart. Then it goes in and does the placement line and tack down for the canopy. And then it starts doing a satin stitch. So I can see, okay, I'm just going to keep that light colored thread that I had on the machine. I'm just going to use that for the placement line and tack down for both of my pieces. And that way I'm not having to constantly change threads back and forth. So we're just going to start doing the applique. So it's going to stitch the tack down, our placement line. And this is for the cart. Now, main thing I think is just make sure, try to get your cart piece of fabric that has the stripes, try to get it straight, on your design. So I'm just going to kind of line up a line there with the fabric and just make sure that stays going straight. And then you could tape that down. I'm just going to hold it. Just make sure you are covering up that placement line. Am I? I am. Okay. So just don't get your lines too crooked. If they're a little crooked, it's probably okay. Now, I'm going to cheat here because the placement line and tack down for this other part of the design is way up there. So I'm not going to take this off and trim it yet. I'm just going to go ahead and stitch the placement line and tack down for our canopy. Is that what it's called? I don't know what it's called. Awning. It's an awning. Huh?
Same thing.
Same thing. that down and tack it down. And that way I just have to take the hoop off the machine one time and trim both of these pieces. Just make sure you don't forget to trim the pieces. So now I'm just going to trim the two pieces and then we'll come back when we start stitching. Okay, so now what we're going to do is just start stitching the design. So it's just going to go into all the different color changes and start stitching. The only thing we're going to do a little bit different, like here on the machine, and it's kind of showing the little bottom part of the cart and the tire and everything. They're calling for black. We're going to just use this dark gray, which is color number 0134. And then for the cans, the little flower cans, we're going to use this light color that we were using. It is color 4071. And then for the words, I decided I don't want those black either. So we're going to use this kind of dark blue, and it is color 3444. Then the other colors are just going to be whatever colors you want your flowers to be. So we're using this kind of beige. It's going to be for the applique of the cart and for the poles that are on the cart. They're showing up on the machine kind of a light gray, but we're gonna, in the picture here on the instructions, it's doing it in the same kind of beigey color, so they'll show up good. And this is color number 0722. So those are kind of, and then again, just a couple of greens and some flower colors for the rest of it. So what we're going to do is just set the camera up on the tripod, and we're just going to film the stitching because there's nothing really special about any of this. We're just going to start sewing. Okay, it finished stitching. So now I'm just going to go in, clip all these fun little connecting threads, and then we will get it framed. So we'll come back after I'm done clipping all this. Okay, so I'm ready to trim everything down. So what I did is I measured and found the center of my background fabric. So it was a 10 by 12. So I just measured, 6 inches up, 5 inches over, and made marks with my fabric marker. And so it doesn't show in the instructions, but to me, this would be a perfect place to use the orange pop rulers. I couldn't remember what they were called. Because you're going to trim this down to an 8 by 10. Okay? Because that's what our picture frame is. So the orange pop ruler will help you get it centered And so now you can't trim to this size because yes, it's for the 8x10 finish. So the actual measurement on the inside is 8.5 by 10.5. But what I'm going to do is use those little center marks that I put on my fabric. I'm going to line those up with the little arrows on the ruler here, like that, like that. And then I'm going to draw, I'm not going to cut, I'm just going to draw that here. And then what I can do is trim a 1/4 inch away from this line, and then it should be 8 by 10, and I should be centered, right? Right. Okay. So now, and I'm actually going to cut just a hair less than a 1/4 inch. So I'm going to have that line that I drew right on top of that 1/4 inch line on my ruler. Myself. 8. There we go. Now, in your picture frame, the clear piece, it's not a piece of glass, it's just a piece of plexiglass. Yay, it worked. You could have just set this on top of, but I wanted to make sure it was centered and straight and everything, and so you could have used this as a guide too, and then drawn around it. So either way works. There's a film on both sides of this piece of plexiglass, and Bailey just cleaned it and I'm getting fingerprints all over it, but you'll peel that film off of this. And so now we need to go get our picture frame and put it in there. So just make sure there's nothing on your plexiglass. That's on the outside. Perfect. Ta-da! Now we're going to make our little freestanding baskets. Our flower. Okay, so what I'm going to show now is how I do the little cut out the embroidery designs, and I just thought this would be a fun project to show you how to do this. I did these, you can tell, years ago. That's Bailey. So when the kids were little, I used to have fun with pictures and the picture frames and everything. And so I just stitched the design off on poly mesh, and then I fuse felt on the back of them, and then I'm going to show you how to cut them out. So we're going to go over to the ironing board. Okay, so if you bring your USB stick in to the store on Club Day, we'll put this extra file on there for you. And so what I did is I just took and deleted everything else from the design. So I just ended up with the 3 flowers, and I did enlarge them a little bit. And so this is a separate file, and we just stitched these off on 2 layers of the poly mesh. And then I'm just taking a piece of the light Steamosine 2, and I'm going to iron that onto a piece of felt. And then we will bond that to the back of our poly mesh. We could clip up all those threads and everything. Okay, and now we'll go cut it out. Okay, so what I'm going to use to cut this out is a stencil cutter. And so we have these little stencil cutting kits. And this is mine. I've had it for years and years and years. And I use this picture frame because this is a glass piece that's in here. And so it doesn't melt the glass or anything. So I just lay my piece that I'm cutting in here. And then you just watch this stencil cutter because it gets hot, hot, hot. I use this little thing that Tyler made in high school as my stand. Most of them, these do come, yeah, I think they do have these little metal stands that you can use, but just do not touch that tip because it gets hot. And so what you do is just go around and cut it. Can you see good? You might get on this side of me. Okay. And just go right up next to the stitches. And you can even do, you want kind of just use the tips. I'm going to hold it down like that. And actually, the tip that's in here, this little curved tip that's in this kit would work great for this because it's kind of curved down. And I had one of those at one time. I think I lost it. You just go around like that. And then once it's cut out, you can take it and go down in and clean up any of the felt around it, but it kind of seals the edges. You don't want to hold it down too long because it can burn, like that right there, it kind of burned that one. So just do a real light and see it's back to then and cut it out. So now I'm going to do this one. And if you're doing a lot of these little things, your stencil cutter can get actually too hot. If it starts like burning, you know, right when you're touching it, then you want to unplug it and let it cool off for a minute. And it doesn't have just the most pleasant smell. Good grief. Well, good grief, come on. There. Attached still. There. And it seems like I have shown this not that long ago, but honestly I cannot remember what we're doing and when I showed it last. That's it. And so I'll just kind of clean these up a little bit, and then we're just gonna glue them onto the picture frame. So we gotta find a hot glue gun, and we will be back. There we go. It's done. Too cute.